As I marched back to my room, I was stopped by Sam. I stared at him as he leaned against the door to our room, as if he had been waiting for me for a while.
Hey.
Hey. I knew that this could only mean one thing. My test was waiting for me. I pressed my lips together, nervous, but knowing that I had to go through it regardless of how I felt. Diana's words began to flood back into my mind as I took Sam's hand and gave it a squeeze. Sam squeezed my hand back, nodding and Sam squeezed my hand back, nodding, and led me away from our bedroom towards the war room where Diana was waiting for us. As I expected, Zero wasn't with Diana, which made Diana's anxiousness seem a little more prominent. He really did never leave her side. Was she that dependent on him? As Diana locked her sights on us, she let out a sigh and gestured to the table, where a large conglomerate of items were placed and presented. Sam halted to stop, staring at the table in absolute shock. I, however, merely grew confused. On the table was an assortment of single flowers, each of a different color and type. They were formed in a magic circle pattern, but there was no magic to be seen.
When did you...
Hush, this is for her.
Sam instantly shut his mouth as I looked to Sam instantly shut his mouth as I looked to Sam in confusion. He knew what this was? I turned to Diana, completely lost.
Dear, do you know what I've prepared here?
Let's see. I stared at the table, unsure how to discern it. A couple of ideas came to mind, but I didn't want to be wrong if this was part of the test. Sam knew what it was, too, given the strong reaction from him. Could it have been... Well, that reaction? A demon marriage ritual. That was it. It had to have been. Why else would Sam react so strangely? It had been on his mind, and now it was staring me dead in the face. Diana nodded, gesturing to the flowers.
This is a marriage ritual. Freshly blossomed flowers, holding peak-worthy magical essence, arranged in a magic circle, are part of what a binding ritual needs to happen.
Part? Diana nodded and looked to the table.
The other part is a precious item forged between two souls to bind them together.
I couldn't believe it. This was my test? There was no way I was ready for this, but here I was, staring at a setup that just screamed, go through with it. Part of me was angry and aggravated. I had to go through this for some stupid dragon's power. This was something Sam and I were supposed to discuss together. Now it felt like an arranged agreement. What was I going to do? The test was obviously going to make me go through with it for the sake of Sam. But I still wasn't ready. Soul binding seemed very heavy, and as much as I loved Sam, I needed to be 100% clear. Sam stepped forward and glared at Diana.
We're not doing this.
Pardon?
You heard me. We're not going through with this.
I stared at Sam wide-eyed. What? Didn't he want to go through it anymore? What was going on? I remembered clearly that he wanted to do it. Now he was against it? Sam looked to me, and I could suddenly see the reason why buried in his eyes. He still wanted to, but not like this. I could tell he was throwing away something he desperately wanted for my own sake. Sam. Sam turned and grasped my shoulders, staring into my eyes.
I know that I want to do this. I want to do this more than anything. But you are more important to me than some dumb ritual. I will never let you force yourself to make this decision if you're nowhere near ready.
Aww. I felt like crying. This was exactly why I loved him. This was one of a million reasons why Sam was so important to me. My heart felt at ease looking into his eyes and letting rogue tears roll down my cheeks. It may have seemed like a simple thing, but to me, this was important. However, as Diana cleared her throat, we both turned to her in reaction. What really threw us off was seeing her cover her mouth, hiding some sort of smirk that was peeking out between her fingers.
Who said anything about you going through with it?
Sam and I became dumbfounded. What? We didn't have to go through with it? Then why was it set up?
For fuck's sake, if you're messing with us...
Diana began to laugh hysterically, causing Sam to stop talking and become dumbfounded once again. What the hell was going on?
I knew it! I knew it!
Don't pick on me!
What the fuck, Diana?
I was beyond lost. As Diana continued to laugh, she curled over her stomach and covered her face, trying to catch her breath.
This was perfect! This was absolutely perfect!
Don't make fun of us. Diana! Now I became frustrated. What was so funny about this? Diana finally stopped laughing, wiping her eyes from the tears that had formed from laughing so hard, and grinned at me and Sam.
I didn't set this up to make you two do it. That would ruin the point of the test.
Then what is the test? I became flustered, now mentally scrambled as to what was going on. As my body suddenly began to sink into the ground, however, I gasped and looked down, seeing a large purple pentagram pulling me and Sam into the floor.
Whoa!
Ah!
Demon marriage lets you know where your soul partner is at all times. The test is that you find your husband without it.
I couldn't even fight back as I was engulfed by darkness at last. I couldn't tell how long I was trapped in that darkness. All I knew was that I was going to wake up and find Sam. As I opened my eyes, I had to adjust to the bright light around me and the sounds of nature in my ears. I rubbed my eyes and found myself in a forest, laying underneath a large tree with burn marks across its bark. I could tell this would be my starting place and my marker if I got lost. So while I felt terrible for the tree, I was thankful to have something to visually reference. So this was my test. I had to find the man I loved without anything but my heart and my instincts. This was cheesy as hell. Expecting someone to find someone else using the power of love. I loved Sam deeply, but I didn't know if it would be strong enough to guide me through a terrain I was unaware of to Sam, who also could have been wandering around looking for me. There were so many variables to consider. Shit, this was a test for a reason. I had to figure this out. Also, still not shit. Damn it! Still, this was a test for a reason. I had to figure this out. I cupped my hands together and shouted, knowing his name would be a way to bring him to me. Almaris! The nearby birds around me fluttered wildly into the air in surprise of my shout. But Sam didn't appear. What the hell? That was supposed to have worked. Something must have had him under holy magic or something to negate the demon summoning. Another part of the test. Guess I wasn't allowed to cheat. It was worth a try. Calm down. I had to be methodical about this. There was no use in panicking over the situation. The forest couldn't be that big. Could it? I shook my head. No. I had to find him if it was the last thing I do. This was the only way to get the dragon's power, as difficult and unnecessary as it was. I took in a deep breath and looked around, trying to decide where to start. I started heading to the left of the tree's burn marks. It was better than no direction at all, and it was a start. Each step I took became one filled with haste. I wanted to find Sam soon, and I didn't want to laze about this. It felt like hours went by until I stopped and looked around, exhausted from walking so far at such a fast pace. I leaned against a nearby tree, catching my breath. How the hell am I going to find him? Something in my heart began to feel heavy. What if I wasn't able to find him? What if this was an impossible quest? I felt my body slide down the side of the tree, making me sit down at the base in fear. This couldn't be. Sadness and ache began to consume my thoughts. There was no way to track him, no way to find him in all this place. I'd be searching forever, only hoping that I would find him and pray that he was still alive when I did. My hands combed through my hair as I fought back tears. Please let me wake up if this was a dream. Please let me see him again.
Giving up so soon, my dear?
At Diana's voice, I suddenly gasped and looked up, only to find no one around. I quickly stood and scanned the area, but, alas, there were only trees around. Diana? I don't know what to do. How can I find him?
You have all of the means to find him. You're just not thinking it through.
I looked into the air, confused as ever. What did she mean? I didn't have anything but the clothes I was wearing. Diana chuckled slightly.
Think. Besides his heart, what else did he give you as a token of his love?
As she said it, the answer came into my mind, replaying the night Sam proposed to me in the night sky. I looked to my hand, seeing the engagement ring Sam had given me resting on my finger, glistening in the light.
There we are. The other part of the marriage ritual.
Second part? This was...
Indeed. It seems he intended to ask you to be his in body, heart, and spirit.
My heart gave a hard and heated thump against my chest, agreeing with Diana's words. He must have prepared all along to ask me to be his, but wanted to at least give me what I wanted first before asking for what he wanted. I smiled, staring at the sparkling emeralds and diamond on my ring, and finally feeling the magic pulse within it. Still, I was lost on how to use it. How will this help me? Diana chuckled once more, her voice quieter than before.
I can't give you all of the answers, dear, but at least you won't be lost anymore.
Her voice finally vanished into the air, leaving me alone once more. However, my focus was on my ring. I remembered clearly that it wasn't an ordinary ring, but one magically forged the night Sam proposed. Sam, I'm going to find you. I nodded and felt a wave of hope and courage rush through my body. I was ready now. I focused on the ring, trying to will it to give me a sign, a hint, anything to help me find Sam. As I stared into it, a word popped into my mind. Letting it loose, I could feel magic pulse into the air from around my body. Amor. My hand suddenly became wrapped in green chain-shaped markings, sprouting from the base of my ring, before jutting off of my skin and flying forward through the air deeper into the forest. I felt myself grinning from ear to ear. I was going to find him. I quickly burst into a sprint, following the ethereal chain that was leading me towards Sam, uncaring of the harsh breaths I was taking or the pain that shot through my legs. I needed to keep going forward. All that mattered was that I had to keep moving forward. The chain twisted and turned around trees and often arched around obstacles for me, guiding me perfectly towards a thicker bush of woods. The amount of bushes and smaller trees began to grow the further in I went, but I continued. Soon enough, I found myself walking towards the descending mouth of a cave, where a familiar brown-haired demon boy lay face down at its edge. Sam! I ran forward and slid onto my knees, lifting his head into my lap. Around his neck was a golden collar which, upon my touch, vanished and caused Sam to stir from his comatose state.
What?
My heart began to swell as I stared down at him, tears welling up in my eyes. This was really him. He was safe here in my arms, and I had found him. His emerald gaze bore into mine, still dazed from the sleep he was in. As he stared up at me, Sam lifted his hand and caressed my cheek, causing me to unconsciously nuzzle into it.
There you are.
Boy, you are going to let me kiss you. I couldn't help but repeat the first words he had ever said to me. They'd engraved themselves into my mind, and I was forever thankful for that day. Sam's lips curved into a smug smile, remembering the phrase perfectly.
Then hurry up and do it.
You smug asshole. I grinned and bent down, capturing his lips with my own. My entire body felt complete as our lips touched. I didn't care if he took energy from me in it. I had found him.
Well done.
To our surprise, the voice didn't ring in our heads. The voice of the dragon echoed from the cave, causing me and Sam to separate and stare into the void.
You have proven to me the strength of your heart. Now, for the final test, Sam must prove his.
God, you take too long to talk. That should have been the last choice, so assuming I got everything right, we might make it out of this alive. I instinctively gripped Sam tighter. We weren't going to be separated again, were we? Sam, however, slowly stood up, guiding me with him, and glared into the darkness.
Hit me with your best shot. I'm ready.
Dark, echoing chuckle reverberated from the cave, causing a shiver of fear to run down my body. I was beyond nervous, but we had come this far. We were going to win his powers.
Step into the cave and face me. I will judge you.
The memories of my nightmare began to fill my mind. What if it was a trick? What if the dragon killed Sam while he was in there? Despite my frightening thoughts, Sam stepped towards the cave, nodding.
You got it.
Every voice and nerve in my head screamed for me to stop him. I didn't want him to die. At the same time, this was a test. He had to do it. I was placing my heart on the table and hoping it wouldn't be ripped apart with a single blast. Gotta let him do it. I had to trust him. He could do this. Well, if you don't get the powers, and then you lose, so... Also, I need to change this. Let's nail the 4th. I watched as Sam walked into the cave, following behind until he vanished into the darkness. I stood once again between the light and the dark, waiting. Waiting. Moments of silence ran by, filling my body with anxiousness. Was he safe? Was he okay? At the sudden shout of a dragon's roar, I jumped and gripped to the cave wall, frightened to the core. It echoed into silence out of the mouth of the cave, but I became worried. What happened? What was going on? The faint echo of footsteps began to make their way towards me, despite me not being able to see into the dark. I hoped it was Sam. I prayed it was Sam unscathed. As Sam finally appeared out of the darkness, I gasped, not at seeing him at last, but when I saw his eyes. They were swirling with red and green flames along the whites of his eyes, while his emerald irises glowed in the dark shadows of the cave. Just from seeing him, I could tell he had changed and had become much more powerful. Sam? Sam grinned at me, stepping up in front of me and placing a hand on my head.
Sup, you doofus?
Hey! I bit my lip and shook my head, pounding a fist into his chest before hugging him to me tightly.
Whoa. Hey, it's all right. I'm right here.
Thank God you are.
May your battle be won, Lord of Dragons.
Such a freaking cool name. It's a nice title. I looked over Sam's shoulders into the darkness. Seeing the faint outline of large dragon's head fade away before my eyes. What the? Lord of Dragons? Before Sam could answer me, a light burst into the air, causing us to grip onto each other and shut our eyes. The warmth of the light seemed to comfort and ease our travel to wherever the dragon was sending us. Regardless, I clung to Sam tightly, desperate not to let go of him. When we opened our eyes at last, we were in the war room in the middle of the space with the rebel leaders, the incubi, and their wives staring wide-eyed at us. Before anyone could move, however, Diana applauded at us, making everyone turn their heads towards her in confusion.
Well done, you two.
Wait, you knew where they were all along?
She told us they were gone. She didn't say she didn't know where.
Listen, that's rude.
Rude.
At least they're safe now.
Get over it, guys. Gosh. James, however, took a step towards Sam, peering at him. Sam's eyes had returned to normal, but I bet that his aura was different now that he was the Lord of Dragons, or whatever the dragon had called him.
At least you're safe now.
You sound just like your wife.
You were worried about him too, dude.
Don't ruin it. He has a reputation.
He's much stronger than before now.
Sam gave James a smug look before holding out his hand.
Yeah, I'm all right now.
The two brothers shook hands, smiling at one another. I was happy to know that he was all right as well, giving him a squeeze. Diana, however, cleared her throat as the rebel leaders took off, catching everyone's attention.
Well, I hate to break up this little reunion, but we have a battle to fight tomorrow. We should rest.